Yes.
So, Nivedita, before we continue with our discussion of the IPKF in Sri Lanka and how we need to come away from there, I've just come back from a visit from Nepal. So, the Nepal Army Chief decided to have what is known as a Chiefs Conclave, a meeting of retired chiefs from India and from Nepal with the serving chief in Kathmandu to discuss whatever issues they wish to bring up. And of course, as part of this 3-day or 3.5-day visit, there were a lot of visits and sightseeing and parties and all that. They laid on a very good parade because Nepal Army Day happens to be the same date as Mahashivratri. Now, Nepal, as you know, is the only Hindu kingdom in the world. And they really believe in their religion, both politically and militarily. So every aspect of their training and of their thinking is based on the Vedanta. And the Lord Shiva is for Mahashivratri is a very, very important occasion. And whatever day the Mahashivratri takes place, like in this case 2 days ago, is the Army Day of Nepal. So they have a large parade which we attended, and we were dressed in Nepali uniform. It's a sort of a kurta pajama with a belt and a cap and medals and a black coat. And all of them are dressed in a similar way, both the soldiers and the officers and the generals. So we were treated with great respect as guests of honor. So 4 chiefs, retired chiefs from India, went there. Besides myself, I was, of course, the senior most. General J.J. Singh and General Deepak Kapoor and General Dilbag Sohag, who had recently been ambassador in the Seychelles. And we 4, their wives, they had their wives. I took my daughter Nadita as a chaperone and as my ADC, if you please. So we were all given great respect. They also made a visit to Muktinath. I don't know if you've heard of this place. Muktinath is in the north central of north of Pokhara. It is at an altitude of about 12,000 feet. And it is the famous shrine which people and Hindus from all over the world attend. The huge crowds, and it's a high altitude area. The troops that are nearby there from the Nepal side are fully acclimatized. Of course, we who are visiting for a few hours have to be careful how we go into this high altitude area. High altitude, as you know, the breathing system becomes a bit difficult for those who come from the plains because your blood is at the pressure of the lower altitudes. Whereas when you go to high altitude, the air pressure is less. So the blood seeps into the lung. That is called pulmonary edema. There are many other difficulties. So we have to be careful, the physical aspects, walk very slowly and admire the scenery after every 2 steps. Because as you start climbing up, you can't breathe properly because the breathing becomes difficult. Anyway, when I was commanding 17th Division and later as an Eastern Army commander, I was fully acclimatized. And I had no problem in the high altitudes. As you know, in Sikkim, we are functioning up to the heights of 18,000 feet. And in Siachen Glacier and other places, our pickets are even higher, 19,500, 21,500, which I visited at the Army. But now, after 33 years of retirement, that acclimatization no longer exists. So anyway, we managed reasonably well and happened to impress the Nepali doctors and others who were supposed to look after us. And we managed to make this visit and partake of the holy waters, etc. at Muktinath. And then we also made a visit to the high altitude restaurant they've got as an Everest view, from where you can see Mount Everest. This is an altitude about 12,500 feet. We went by helicopter, and again, you climb a whole lot of steps and things to reach this. It's a semi-hotel. A lot of tourists come there, by the way. This is the gateway to go. If you want to climb Everest, this is the first place that you visit, and then the trail goes from there onward towards Everest. Now, what I want to say is that because of global warming, the snow on these high altitude areas is very little. For instance, at 12,500 feet, they tell me in month of February is normally full of snow. But here there was no snow, 12,500 feet. There was all this lichen sort of grass that you find in Tibet also. It's very small grass, which is, you have to look hard to find it, but it is very nutritious. You know, in high altitude, like the yaks, that, for instance, that are in Tibet, they feed on this lichen thing, and they're very powerful animals. And their milk, etc., is very powerful, very strong. So nature for all species, and the lichen grass was there, but no snow. When we looked at Mount Everest, we were a little disappointed to see it looked like a very small little mountain compared to the high peaks surrounding us, because it's quite far away. And it had a wisp of cloud on its crown, on its head, like a lady with flowing white hair, if you please. And the face of Everest facing us, that is the western face, was all bare rock. There was no snow on it. South of Everest, there is a Lhotse face, which the climbers go to first before climbing Everest. That was full of snow. So this is also part of global warming. People say that, you know, we've never seen a mountain so bare with black rock rather than full of snow. This is global warming. And I think the world is going to come to a sorry state if we don't do something about this. Because when the snow doesn't come and the snow melt doesn't come, the rivers start drying up. We cannot survive without water, and there'll be water wars between various countries in the future if we don't manage properly. How we're going to manage, I'm not very certain about it. There are a lot of thinking on the subject. But I did feel this. As far as the actual chief conclave is concerned, we got together for about an hour. There were about 5 or 6 Nepalese retired chiefs, some of them very senior, and some of them recent retirees. And there were 4 of us. And we discussed a few minor points. Personally, between you and me, I thought that we should discuss more of strategy and, you know, the future, rather than little points which are more political in nature rather than military in nature, you know, boundary question and all that. I did suggest to them about boundaries. I said, when there is a will, there is a way. There are 2 examples here. One is the India-Tibet boundary between India, with China and Tibet and India. This has been under contention from the British days. Why? Because number of years ago, number of centuries ago, there were no boundaries. Everybody went wherever he pleased. Now with boundaries there, there's a dissension about the exact location of these boundaries, and that leads to conflict. Now, the most peaceful boundary in the world today is the almost 4,000 or 5,000 kilometer long boundary between Canada and the United States. But there is a friendly neighbors, and they have no problem of crossing this boundary and, you know, whatever. But there's no military presence in their boundary. But in the India-China boundary, which is about 4,000 kilometers, and in the line of control in Kashmir between India and Pakistan, there's always a problem. Now, for settlement of these boundaries, it requires mature political thinking on both sides, diplomatic and political. If that maturity and desire to settle is not there, then the boundary doesn't get settled. And if you ask the Chinese, why aren't you getting on with this boundary? Because after all, when Rajiv Gandhi visited China in 1988 and became friends with Deng Xiaoping, the then president, they did decide to get a boundary commission together and decide this. We started meeting from, I think, 1994 or thereabout. And it still goes on without much decision being taken, especially in certain vital areas. If you ask the Chinese, why is this not being settled? They say, the Indians are interesting people, they don't decide to settle. If you ask the Indians, so why they don't settle, they say, the Chinese don't want to settle, they want more and more land. Now, there surely is something in between this. So my view is that only friendly, diplomatic, and political relations can settle the boundary. We hopefully will come to that stage in some time in the future. And then there's no difficulty in settling the boundary because every inch of land has to be decided. Maps have to be marked and boundary pillars have to be put up so that everybody knows where his land is. Boundaries are important because the administration of people on a particular side of the boundary has to be done by that country, and therefore the defense there. The medical aspects, the educational aspects, and the provision of food and so on has to be done in your part of the land, so that boundary is necessary for you to know where your jurisdiction lies and where your politics and administration has to support the well-being of the people that live there. All right. I told you earlier that as far as boundaries are concerned, when the British colonial powers and the French colonial powers and the Dutch and so on, and even Americans in some case, come and interfere and decide on boundaries, it's not their land. They're not defending their own country. They're defending areas which they have colonized. So therefore, things get too hot for them, they have to take and run from them. In our case, as far as the Indian Army is concerned, we have decided, since I was a Lieutenant Colonel really, that the boundaries are ours and those villages are ours and we cannot hand them over to the enemy. Therefore, we will not withdraw. We will fight. All right. Which means more conflict if the boundary is not decided. As far as the Chiefs Conclave is concerned, it's held in India since 2021, every second year, and once in the tenure of an army chief. And the idea is to bring retired officers together, and we bring retired generals from Nepal also with this, because they are honorary generals of the Indian Army. Retired. And we discuss strategic and tactical thinking. But again, even on the Indian side, I think more time has to be given to the strategy and future methods of handling the problems of the nation rather than having too many parties. This is the same criticism I have about this one I attended recently, 2 days back or 3 days back, because I think we need to discuss far more deeper questions about relations between countries. Military has a very important role to play, and I'm glad to say that the Nepali army also has a constitution which they obey, as does the Indian army, which means that political leaders have to understand that the military will only act under the laws of the constitution. So if some requirement is made which is not correct in accordance with the constitution, there has to be some dissension, which in India we do follow. So much of that. Now, when I was coming back, as I said, from Sri Lanka, after starting the withdrawal of the Indian army from that land, I did say to you that it's very easy to go into a country. It's not easy to get out. Because as you get out, the strength starts getting smaller and smaller, and whomever you are facing as the so-called insurgent groups or the terrorist groups, they're becoming stronger because you are getting lesser in strength. Therefore, we had to take certain actions to force the Sri Lanka government, especially when the new president Premadasa took over. Jayawardena was a very friendly man and we had no difficulty with him. But when Premadasa came, and we had difficulties with him, because I didn't think he had the strategic vision to handle the situation. Anyway, and when we knew that we were going away, then to say, all right, we'll throw them out, and that sort of thing doesn't work. And I told you all that we did. What is the crux of this business? I must tell you. The political mind and the military mind must be very closely coordinated if you're facing a military problem. The first point I told you earlier, you cannot have an external affairs ministry looking after military operations abroad. Because in our rule book, It says anything outside the borders of India belongs to the external affairs, the Ministry of External Affairs. They are bureaucrats, they are diplomats, they have no idea of how to conduct a military operation. That is with the three chiefs who normally function under Ministry of Defense. And Ministry of Defense, the Defense Minister and his staff do appreciate how to deal with and handle the three services. And vice versa. We have our difficulty, but then one way or another, we do know how to deal with it. Ministry of External Affairs talks and talks and talks, and no decisions coming out of it from the military point of view. Never again should this country, if it has to go abroad for any military action, should that operation be under the external affairs. Just will not work. It has to be a defense ministry operation, overseen, if you like, by the external affairs ministry and the political leadership. Yeah. But the control of the three services and what sort of military actions to take and the interference and intervention that they try to do with the military commanders' views is something which has to be worked out. We need a higher command, and now I'm very happy to say that we've got a Chief of Defense Staff after a whole year's gap when General Rawat passed away. The Chief of Defense Staff is a man who has to hold the hand of the government when the military chiefs are involved in an external operation. So let's see where that goes. But anyway, the next thing is the politics of it. Now, what I found was that when we agreed to bring the IPKF back with the assistance of the Sri Lankan government and its military, the three Sri Lankan chiefs were very happy to support us in whatever way we wanted. And they even decided to give us a good send-off from Trincomalee, the great harbor on the eastern coast, and partied us and, band and music and all that to say a good goodbye and a thank you for our efforts that the IPKF did for about 2.5 years in Sri Lanka. We did do the election, especially the terrorist regions of northern and eastern Sri Lanka. And we did bring minds of the Tamil group and the Sri Lankan leadership, political leadership together as to what is required to be done to manage the thing in future. Now, how this is managed in the future, you've read the news as much as I, even much after the IPKF went in recent years, when Rajapaksa was the boss, he exterminated a large number of Tamils, etc., much to the disgust of the world community. But anyway, that's the way politics functions. It's nothing to do with us. But as far as we are concerned, the problem was we did not accept millions of Tamils who are Sri Lankan citizens to come back into India. And I told you earlier, this problem existed from the days of the British, nothing new. Now, the next point was that the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu was a gentleman by the name of Karunanidhi. Now, he's a very good Chief Minister, very powerful Chief Minister, but somehow always in opposition to the central government. That's fine, but he took a dim view of the fact that the Indians eventually had to proceed against the Tamil terrorism of the LTTE. I told you that RNAW of India was supporting the LTTE. It's another lesson for us. You don't have the right hand of the government fighting against the left hand of the government. Intelligence services and military services must be coordinated to function with a single aim. But in this case, the LTTE, even when the Indian Army was going against them for the reasons I have described earlier, were being supported. And they're injured, and people who wanted medical cover and so on were brought into Tamil Nadu province, and all the nursing homes of Tamil Nadu and hospitals of Tamil Nadu are full of LTTE personnel, officers and men, who were getting medically looked after when they needed for whatever medical aid they wanted. Some of them were very badly injured, some of them were ill, whatever. And we knew that. We had a list of every single, from our intelligence, of every single hospital in the whole of Tamil Nadu, including Madras and other large towns, and all the nursing homes which had hundreds and thousands of LTTE personnel for repair and recovery, as you might say. Second thing is that though the Sri Lankans were going to give us a very good send-off and Trincomalee with band and all that, Mr. Karunanidhi made a few statements to say that the IPKF is a nasty organization. It has turned against the Tamils and killed some Sri Lankan Tamils. And therefore, I will not let them land in Madras. Now, that is the place that which we had gone from. And the IPAF headquarters, tactical headquarters, was in Chennai, then known as Madras. So he said, we will have crowds in the streets to prevent the ships landing here, and we will not let them down. So I didn't like that. And I flew from Sri Lanka to Chennai, or to Madras as it was known, and I requested for a meeting with the chief minister, which was arranged by the staff, and he was very kind to meet me. And I met him. I had my own staff officer and General Kalkat, who was the IPKF commander with me, and we met the chief minister, who had 2-3 people with him, and there were a lot of pleasantries. Then I requested the chief minister that I want to discuss some private things with you. So would you agree to allow our staff to go away so that you and I can have a one-to-one? He said, yes, certainly. But Mr. Karunanidhi was more happy with Tamil, not English. I don't know any Tamil. I come from a South Indian regiment. I know some words of Tamil, but not enough to carry a discussion. So one of his ministers told me in English that the chief minister wants him to stay behind so that he can translate what I'm saying in Tamil to the chief minister, and then hear what he has to say, and then translate it into English. And I said, that's fine. So I sent away all my staff, and General Kalkat went away, and I started talking to the chief minister. Now about interpretation. When you have an interpreter, you are not very clear whether what he's telling the opposite side of what you said is exactly what you said or is slightly convoluted. You understand what I mean? Now, all interpreters, especially the gentleman who is a minister, are very highly trained in the language, and the minister has got political views of his own, if you like. So if I say something, I was not very clear whether what he interpreted to the chief minister. But Karunanidhi would pick up some of the English himself. Anyway, and what he said in Tamil and what I was told in English, again, I was not very certain whether I was hearing the exact implication of the words. But I put up a few points. I told the chief minister that your threat that the IPKF can't land here is not acceptable. We are the Indian Army, and we belong to this nation. You are the chief minister of this country, and whatever task we've done in Sri Lanka is as per the orders of the central government. Now, again, he told me that we don't agree with the central government in what it's doing, and we know that you as an army chief are only subservient to the prime minister, and therefore you are his man. Why should we then listen to you? See? So Nivedita, I told him, I said, look, I'm sorry. I am not the man of the chief minister. I am the man of the Constitution of India. Please understand. I do not take any oath which I feel are antagonistic to the Constitution. Now, since all of you have elected this government, whom you do not agree with, just the Congress government of Rajiv Gandhi, it's between you and him, nothing to do with me. If you personally didn't vote for him, that's up to you. I'm not interested. But the majority of Indians have voted for him, and he's the central government, and he's the prime minister. Therefore, if he and his cabinet have agreed that the army should go to Sri Lanka and do what it has to do, and now that it has to come back, it should come back, then we follow those orders. So I'm not his man. I'm the man of the Constitution, and these instructions by the Cabinet of India are totally legal. As per the Constitution, he's got the authority of making a cabinet decision of this nature. He's not doing something privately for himself. And therefore, your view that you do not accept is firstly not understood by me, and secondly, is not going to be listened to by me. I am going to land here with my IPKA. And if you have a public antagonistic reaction, I shall sort out your reaction and the public reaction. I have got the capability to do that. So I would not like you to contest me on this. I must say he was kind enough to agree to receive the IPKF with band, baja, and welcome, which I achieved from him. Now, these are political matters, and we are the Indian Army. We have large number of Tamil troops, Tamil officers with us. But the fact of the issue is that no state in this country is going to say that they do not agree what the Indian Army is doing or not doing, because we are the Indian Army and we only function according to the legalities of the Constitution. I'm very happy that he agreed, and he received us very well. By the way, when the IPK landed, there was a sort of good reception and all that sort of thing. So that ended that chapter. Subsequent to this visit, the IPK was withdrawn in good measure, and we parted with friendship with both the Sri Lankan government and the Karunanidhi government of Tamil Nadu, and the Tamils of northern and eastern Sri Lanka, if I might say, except for Mr. Prabhakaran and the LTT, who were naturally very uncomfortable that they had been given a defeat since we had been able to run the elections. Now, what happened later with the elections, I don't want to go into it because that's politics again. Government of India in its own politics keep changing its stance. The man they suggested that the Tamil should vote for, Mr. Perumal, was a very fine gentleman. But in the end, he got defeated in the election because, the government of India itself turned against him. And then what happened in Sri Lanka after that is a matter of their politics, of which I'm not the least concerned. Anyway, we brought the IPK here. There's another factor which was developing in Punjab. You see, after my predecessor, General Sundarji, had run a large exercise called brass tacks, where a large amount of the army had been concentrated on the borders of, or near the borders of southern Punjab and Pakistan, and created a reaction from the Pakistan side. It took many months for us to sort of decide to disengage for no rhyme or reason. So Pakistan after that held an exercise called Zarb-e-Mumin. Now Zarb-e-Mumin is something about the light of heaven or something. I'm not interested in what the meaning of the terms are. But the result was that the two armored divisions of Pakistan had left their cantonments about a year earlier and were in northern Punjab and eastern Punjab, facing the southern borders of J&K, that's the Jammu border, and facing the western borders of Punjab. And they were not going back to their cantonments. And I noticed that. And I spoke to the Prime Minister that we have to look into this subject a little carefully as to why are these troops still here? And they were all with full battle order and ready for operation. Of course, we were also ready on this side because we are manning our borders. BSF is in front, manning the various border outposts. But behind that, backing that up, are the Indian Army. Now, when I got back, I asked my coordinator from Sri Lanka to come back in haste and to start training from jungle warfare, etc., to back to plains warfare with air support and all that sort of thing, which would be required in case there was a tussle with Pakistan. So I must give it to my generals commanding these divisions and the cause under which they came, very active indeed, very efficient. There's a large army. To move it from point A to point B requires a lot of administration, a lot of transport, a lot of organization, which are done expert. Especially many of our troops are coming back by sea. So it was Navy and Army with air support, which was bringing the IPKF back. Very complimentary, because to move large armies is not easy. So I moved them back, and they had done about 2 months training when we got a little more intelligence that the Pakistanis were building up a lot. Now, in addition to this, Navigita, one thing about any nation of the world is that the problem will never settle down. No matter what happens, it's when you're fighting for your independence, it used to have a single aim: we must get independence from the British, and everybody's together. But once you become independent, to run your country, there are so many groups which are antagonistic to the political authority that there's problems in almost every state of India even today. You know that. When you're reading your newspapers, you can see that. So therefore, what is the management that is going to take place and what are the problems facing? Keep on progressing. In my time, the luck of the draw was that there were problems in Kashmir and there were problems in Punjab. of the local Sikh terrorism in Punjab and the local Muslim population terrorism in Kashmir. It started. Of course, Pakistan borders are next door. Now, what happens here is that since Pakistan is an antagonistic state, they proceed to train Indian terrorists by giving them weapons, explosives, drugs to infiltrate into India and create mayhem. That is what happened. Now, the Western nations like the UK and, for instance, America are not got that much about this problem because basically their borders are sea borders. Of course, from sea also people come in with drugs and all that sort of thing. But to much lesser extent, the land border a chap can cross anyway. It's not easy to defend every inch of your land. When I told you earlier in the Punjab case that when smugglers are operating across, they're bringing weapons and drugs. They've got a lot of money. Much of the money is printed in Pakistan, Indian money, you see. And so they bribe the policemen on the border, etc., to allow to pass in a certain way. I mean, how much money does somebody want? You can give 3 or 4 lakhs to a single police commander, you see, at a low level, and cross from a certain lane into Punjab. It's happening even today. And then the political opposition parties in, let us say, the border state like Punjab, are using some of these against the government which has been elected. So this is sort of problem that a land border country faces. It happens in all land border countries, but I'm only talking of India. Now I noticed that the Sikh terrorists is getting from bad to worse in Punjab. The amount of drugs coming into Punjab and into J&K was fantastic. This had to be stopped. And I knew that the government is really doing nothing very much about it. The central government, because the matters left with the state. I think the state government itself was not really able with its police forces to control this. So are dead. I said a large number of military had to come in between all the borders of the various cities and villages of Punjab. What was happening, Nivedita, that our own young men belonging to Indian families would go across to Pakistan, get a lot of money, machine gun, a lot of money in their pocket. Now when they come back, create mayhem. Their parents couldn't control them. What do they want? Loot anybody they like, take anyone from any village and use it for their purposes. And how were they functioning? They'd go to the village head. You know, you have a panchayat and you have the village head who's been elected. You go to him that we want this money, we want this, and we are going to take that certain girl away and you will assist us. And he's frightened. He says, if you don't help us, we're going to kill you. They're armed. So they do what they like. Now I said that to prevent this, we need to infiltrate in the area between all villages from dusk to dawn so that no movement is permitted. So very luckily, the Director General Police of Punjab was KPS Gill, a famous name for anti-terrorism, very supportive indeed. Now we approached Mr. KPS Gill and said, this is what we want to do. This is doing your work. So now we are going to infiltrate into the villages and we want you to declare a curfew from dusk to dawn, whatever the timing is, say it's from 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning. And nobody, neither police, nor bureaucrats, nor officials, no intelligence agents, nor any human being is permitted to move between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. We let them know. I practiced this in Tripura earlier, which I've spoken to you about. And I think this is a further development of the similar thinking. And now we infiltrated large number of infantry formations into the areas between these villages. Their task was very simple. If anybody moves at night, catch hold of him, interrogate him, find out who he is, test who he is, bring the local police in it to identify him. What is his purpose of moving? See? And if he's got a gun, put him in the jail, hand him over to the police. See? Right. Once we did this, basically terrorists have to move at night because during the daytime, everybody's alert and police are hanging around. It's not easy to threaten someone in a village during broad daylight. So nor is it easy to abduct a woman, let us say, in broad daylight when there's police and things hanging around. Anyway, we reinforced the whole of Punjab like this. I brought almost 2 divisions worth of infantry. Now, General Rodericks at that time, who, if you recollect earlier, was on my staff as when I was commanding 1 corps, he was my chief of staff. And then when I became the army chief, he was the director general military training, and then he had gone as the army commander to Punjab. So he rang me up. He says, look, you are bringing in large number of infantry troops from the east, but they've got no artillery. So if you are thinking of defending Punjab against any military thrust by the Pakistan, this is not the way to go. You must have guns. Guns are most important. Now, he's a gunner officer himself. I said, yes, Roddy, you're absolutely right. But we are playing a bit of a political game, so keep your nose clean, keep out of it. Let me handle it, because if things go wrong, my head will roll and not yours. Is it okay? So large number of troops were infiltrated into the Majha district of Punjab, which is west of the Satluj River, between the Ravi and the Satluj, right? It's the Majha district. And we infiltrated about, I would say, 2 divisions worth of infantry. And they were carrying out this task. With the result, we caught a large number of young fellows who were moving around either with weapons or with drugs or something, and caught them and put them in the jails. These cases are still going on. And Mr. KPS Gill was a great help, because the moment we caught somebody, we handed over to him and he took the police action accordingly. Then there were some terrorists who were wanted with 5 lakhs on their head or 10 lakhs on their head. We caught some of these and killed them. Either caught them and handed to the police, or if there was an encounter, killed them. Then whoever killed him, let's say there was something 5 lakhs on his head. So Mr. Gill used to ask our generals, who did this, so that we can give him the money. We said, no, you decide. Any one of your local SPs or superintendents of police or your Thanedar Sahab, etc., whoever is in that district, it is with their assistance that we've done this, so they should get it. But don't you military chaps want the results of your good action? I mean, you're getting a lot of money. I said, we don't want money in the army. Somebody who's done good work gets a little ribbon, a medal. It doesn't cost the government even more than 4 or 5 rupees, but it's a great honor. So we work for honor and integrity, not for cash. We don't want to spoil the mood of the Indian soldier to become greedy for money. So we won't accept any money. So he managed all that. And Mr. KPS Gill became famous all over the world as an anti-terrorism expert. And now, Nivedita, our country is a very interesting country. Once the problem was solved and things quietened down, then those families whose children had terrorists, they know they were terrorists. They know what their boys were up to. They've gone to court to say our chap was caught for no rhyme or reason, our chap was killed by the police for no rhyme or reason, taken cases against the police. See, it's still going on. So Mr. Gill found a lot of difficulty staying there, so he was posted to Assam as the Director General Police Assam, and he is